Meeting. This is our weekly Commissioners Finance meeting, today, August 2nd, 2023, at 1:30 p.m. So Ron, call the meeting to order, and we open with an opportunity for public comment. Anyone wish to address the board? Do anyone online?
No.
Okay, very good. We'll move on to item 3, which is the approval of the minutes of the July 26th meeting.
Move to approve the minutes of July 26th.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right, that moves us into our topics of discussion for today. We have 2. First is Cumberland Area Economic Development Corporation, our quarterly update. Kristen and Janet with us today. Take it away.
Right. So it's been about 2 months, not quite a quarter, since we were here last. So our report may seem a little light because of that, but I want to make sure. Share with you. So we did draft letters for the ARPA update to for-profit businesses and non-profit businesses. And we have not had much response to that thus far, but we'll continue to follow up. Jumping into our 5 pillars, if you will, from our strategic plan. Again, this is aligned to our strategic plan. Our first objective is proactive strategies to attract and expand businesses. And we have been convening partners that will lead to a flow of potential applicants for our loan programs and grant programs. And you can see that we have, we have 86 leads from April through July, 3 grants that were approved and 3 loans that were approved. Moving on now, you can see all of the various that I was speaking to, all of the various groups that we have met with in the last couple months since we were here last to identify potential leads and increase those numbers from the first slide. In the area of for-profit, we have met with the following banks, again, for lead flow generation. We're making some progress here. We're starting to see some leads come into CADIC. Businesses are starting to expand here in Cumberland County and are utilizing the following banks that are making leads or providing leads to us. In terms of strengthening financial support and going beyond monitoring grant opportunities, we've been watching the LSA, the local share account, for the next group of funds. We have been watching for RACPs, the Redevelopment Capital Assistance Program, and then we have been participating with the region in the SEDS to identify projects from the federal government for EDA, ARC, and USDA, from EDA, ARC, and USDA.
John say that the SEDS office was closing.
No. SEDS is the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy.
Okay.
No, they continue. There was a meeting last week, in fact, of several groups talking more about the SEDS process. So that does continue. This is direct funding that we have, the Redevelopment Capital Assistance Program. We do have 20 grants that we are working with in various stages of the grant process. So some of those predate me and others are brand new since I've been on board. We do have 2 new RACP prospects. So these are groups that have reached out to us looking for those funds when they become available. And I am scheduled to meet with both Senator Rothman and Senator Regan next week in Harrisburg to talk about capital budget projects and itemization and such. In the area of loans that we offer, our internal programs are the Cumberland Small Business Revolving Loan Fund, the CRELF, which is the Energy Revolving Loan Fund, and TILF, which is our Tourism Fund. Those are all still in place and do have funds. And we also work with several external loan programs, including PETA at the state, the SBA 504, several banks with SBA 7A, the CDBG. We do have CDBG funds that we administer. And the CWCA is a PETA program as well that was during and we'll talk about that one in a minute, during COVID. You may recall that last year we applied for the SSBCI funding and did receive that. We are working to do more outreach to populations that qualify for those grant dollars or loan dollars, excuse me, and have been putting a plan in place to do so. So the Alliance program, we continue to look for best practices. We continue to add new Alliance members and receive renewals. And the Membership and Engagement Committee is reviewing other areas and how we can improve on our Alliance. We do have a couple of Alliance events coming up, founded on the Green Golf event on September 6th, and I'll be reaching out to all of you for donations and prizes, and the annual Alliance event, and that will be October-November timeframe. That'll be focused on workforce or economic development. In the area of workforce development, looking at identifying current and future workforce needs, we have had 5 meetings with local businesses and 9 meetings with nonprofit service providers to match up the needs and the gaps with individual groups that are providing services. In the area of current and future workforce needs, industry partnerships, we have been participating in several of these. At the moment, the IT industry partnership seems to be the most active, and we continue to work with them. We have had several meetings with local educators at all levels, school districts, colleges, and other entities such as Emerge Education and the career and technical centers. We are also working on career pathway models and have been working with the school districts on where they would like to be involved with us, and if there are ways we can help them with their career pathways. And we've also been working on the Cradle to Career Alliance Summit, working with the group out of Creedic. And then final plans are in the works for our August 24th hospitality session with local employers to determine their needs, the positions that are keeping them up at night, and how we can help them fill those. Looking at the ecosystem of workforce talent development, we have been working with local groups and have written a couple letters of support. One for USDA, the Skills Center is working with CCHRA to submit an application for brownfield workforce training, and we've been involved with them on that process, as well as Emerge Education has reached out, and they are looking for economic development administration funding from the Build to Scale grant program at the federal level. We've made presentations to the South Central PA Business Summit at Shippensburg University and the United Way Road to Success on what we're doing in workforce development. Moving into our small business and entrepreneurship, again, we do have the Workforce Roundtable looking at occupations in hospitality coming up. We do have 2 lunch and learns planned in the next 2 weeks. One is on bond financing, and that is for both the nonprofit municipal area as well as manufacturing. We targeted for that, and a session that is cleverly called Cover Your Assets that will be held on August 10th, and that's phase 1 environmental review and the importance of doing that. We have been working on our business guide of resources for entrepreneurs, and we have developed a brochure that we can share, we've requested to be included in the regional entrepreneurial ecosystem map that's put together by Braided River Collective. And that is a group that is working heavily with entrepreneurs in the region, and we're hoping that we get more interest in Cumberland County. The small business and entrepreneurship objective for a business guide. This is the Working Capital Access Program. This is that CWCA that I mentioned earlier. Through this process, the Pennsylvania Industrial Development Authority reached out to us. There were several businesses in Cumberland County that received funding through PETA, and attached to it during COVID, it was working capital money, was a balloon payment that came due on August 1st. So we reached out to all of those businesses and provided them with additional resources to help them make that balloon payment so they did not go into default. So those resources included our resources, local banks, and some technical assistance as well. At this point, I will pause and let Kristen.
Switching over to our pillar for tourism and marketing for our first objective here, we have a focus on developing a cohesive brand for CADIC as an organization. So as a first step, we have engaged Relic, our advertising agency, to help with this CADIC branding project. And we have, we're finalizing some focus groups to kick this project off with. So we have eight focus groups identified that have about 10 individuals in each of those focus groups. That'll really be a deep dive into CADIC's brand in the past and in the future. And then beyond that, we will be sending out a survey to all of our partners in our system about how they see CADIC in the community, how we could be doing more, so we can be aiming towards a more cohesive brand for all that we do at CADIC. Switching to our quality of life and relocation objective, we continue to add information and content to the microsite we created, which is the Welcome to Cumberland Valley microsite. We added information on school districts and healthcare information that you can find in Cumberland County there. And our content team is also working on itineraries for our towns, Shippensburg, Carlisle, Mechanicsburg, and West Shore. And they're going to be added sporadically throughout this month to that landing, that microsite as well. Switching to our leisure advertising, this is a long slide, I know, but we are working with Relic for the first time. So we are working through their advertising suggestions. So far, these are the outlets that have been confirmed. The one I would draw attention to is that first bullet, because we are participating with the state's co-op program this year, which takes a $100,000 investment on our end and turns it into a $300,000 investment. So that has been a wonderful program that the state has been offering. That really makes our dollars go a lot farther. But we are doing a mix of things that we know have worked in the past, because we are getting a little bit of a later start this year because we were onboarding a new agency while we're doing some other projects with them to get started for a brand new look and feel next year. I like to bring to this meeting the lodging data that we get from STAR, that's Smith Travel Research. This is April, May, and June. That's the most recent data that they can provide. I think the takeaway here is that, again, occupancy has been down this year compared to last year. 2022 was really a record year for a lot of lodging stats, not just here, but really across the region and Pennsylvania. But you can see we're really creeping back with occupancy this summer, and I'm hearing from our hotels that the summer months have been great so far, and it's looking great out into fall as well. And again, where we're making up for that dip in occupancy is in the daily rate and in the revenue that they're pulling in because of that daily rate. So things are going well in the hotel world. Switching over to our trails, again, there's a lot of data here, but I wanted to draw your attention to the check-ins year over year for Beer Trail and Ice Cream Trail. They are up significantly, which is exciting to see, especially Beer Trail, because we've had that trail around for some years now, but check-ins are still up 97% year over year. Ice Cream Trail check-ins are up 151% year over year. And now with some survey data that we have, we're able to see how much people are spending when they participate in our trails. So for example, if you look at the Beer Trail, for the people that are going to 5 locations, they're spending an average of $215 when they're here in our area. And then lastly, I wanted to point out our Farm Fresh Trail is a revamped version of our Fall Fun Trail last year. This is going to be a refocus of that trail on farm retail and attractions. We're hoping that makes it less seasonal, has a longer lasting feel. And we have between 15 and 17, I believe, partners signed up so far, with a couple more that we expect to join in. So we're really excited about that one so much. We're also very excited to be bringing back tourism grants. We announced that these were coming back to our tourism partners at our tourism event last week. We had about 90 people in attendance. All were very excited to hear this. So we presented the guidelines for the product development grant and the recovery grant to the board in June. And then we met with the 2 committees that are going to be involved in this process in July. So we met with the tourism committee to refine the application and the evaluation process. And then we met with the finance committee to see what financial documents they'd like to see to be able to help make decisions. And then we are working on a 3rd category for the grant based on some new requests and needs that we're hearing in the immediate need. So we are going to be finalizing that application and bring it back to the 2 committees so we can get that one going as well. I usually bring some data points for our website. So for Visit Cumberland Valley, again, there's a lot of numbers here, but just to draw attention, that traffic again is up year over year, and SEO, search engine optimization, is the largest contributor to that. For destination sales efforts, I've been saying this, I think, all year, but our focus has been on sports because that's what's really been bringing us the most overnights. And I wanted to provide you today with the dates of some of the really big events that we've helped bring here, and that will be coming starting in November through February. And I think the big success here is that they are happening during the months that our hotels really want to see us bring in overnights, because that is our off season. So this is when they really want to bring in traffic. So the one new update here is that we're looking into a sports and events economic impact calculator that will help us determine the true impact of these events on how many overnights they're actually bringing in and their reach in our region, so we can compare a little bit more apples to apples. So when we're getting requests from these event planners, we can maybe better understand what our investment should be in these different types of events. Switching over to our PR efforts, in the last 2 months, we've had some great coverage on our new office space. We also had some coverage on a news release we sent out on some funding we did for grants. We had about 5 million in total circulation and reach over the last month. And then more recently, we hosted a travel influencer who has over 26,000 followers on her socials. And she went and experienced things like the Appalachian Trail. She did the Beer Trail and the Ice Cream Trail, and she also did some of our farm attractions. So that lined up perfectly with all of our trails we've been promoting. So that went really well. Our content team has been doing quite a bit too. We recently did a success story for Signature Staffing in Lemoyne. They are celebrating an anniversary of their business, so we're celebrating that with them. We're working with our vendor on the new visitor's guide for next year. And we also met with the team at the Farmland Preservation Program for the county to help them brainstorm ways that they can increase the word about that program and any marketing opportunities we can help brainstorm with them. Again, a lot of data here for social media, but our Facebook and Instagram for tourism continue to grow and do well. We did a promotion with H2L Studios for National Yoga Day. So I think we're just trying to find new and exciting ways to work with our businesses and partners to promote our social media, but also promote their social media so we can kind of grow together. And our two big newsletters for leisure, visitor, and beer trail newsletters, the open rate and the click-through rate, continue to hold strong this year. Switching over to growing awareness for CADIC services on the economic development side of things. Again, for CumberlandBusiness.com, that's our economic development website. Traffic is way up compared to last year. Again, the largest contributor is search engine optimization, SEO. I also wanted to draw your attention that our team is working behind the scenes to really get this website ready to relaunch with a whole new look. That should be ready this fall. Oh,
All right. Having fun.
back
right?
to you.
So on the administrative side, under the category of employee growth, development, and accountability, we do have one member that has completed the National Development Council training for economic development credit analysis, and we have one who is enrolled so that we are able to make those analysis and prepare them for our committee that's reviewing. We have hired an HR consultant, and our employee handbook is well underway. So we're excited about that. We hope to have that available in the next month or 6 weeks. Also, Kristen showed a photo of our new office space. Thank you for approving our spending money on a new lease. It has been signed. We have had the staff there. Kristen and I have spent a lot of time working on IT and phones and furniture and things like that, so that we're able to move in by the end of September. And we're hoping to have an open house in November timeframe. Budget update has begun. And Kristen, Lori, and I will be spending a lot of time in the next few weeks preparing that, because the next time we come back, we present to you in October our budget presentation. And at that, I'll stop and see if you have any questions for either of us.
What's the prospect look like for the replacement of the workforce development?
We are getting resumes like you can't imagine. We've had at least 20 people apply. We probably have a handful that we will bring in to interview.
Is that task force still meeting?
It has not been.
Has not, okay.
No. Coming back online, before I came here, I had a call with Jesse McCree. We're going to be revamping that group and bringing it back online. Welcome.
Just one other question. You mentioned back in objective 3.1 about the bond financing. Did you say that's open for municipal partners as well? Interesting. Okay.
It's a lunch and learn, and we would like to know so that we have lunch for everyone if someone is coming, but it is open and it is tomorrow. So if anyone's interested, please have them reach out. Thank you for your time.
All right. Good. We're going to get our update from Conservation District, and we had Carl and Vince with us today. So,
No, you have a handout, but I have another handout, and you'll understand what it is once I get to the first slide. Good afternoon, commissioners. Appreciate the opportunity to give highlights of the Conservation District, what we've been doing in the last 6 or 9 months or so. And Vince McCollum, Assistant Manager, here with me, and we'll start it off here and move it to the first slide. And what I gave you was a handout. 2 weeks ago, Conservation District Cumberland County was recognized as 70 years in existence, and we were at the state conference. And what I have you, and I gave this also Stacy, as the first annual report in 1953 put together. And no, Vince and my names are not on the minutes for that meeting, that's for sure. But it was interesting to find this in the file and take a look at it. And obviously, it was typed up by a typewriter, back in that day. And a lot of the report is cooperating agencies that worked with the Conservation District at that time. So I thought it'd be interesting to show you a report from 70 years ago. That's quite interesting. The first program we'll highlight is the tree seedling sale. Everyone knows that we have the tree seedling sale. It's a big event each year, and since COVID hit, I think people found that they have a green thumb, and our sales have almost doubled as far as the number of customers that come to us each year. So because of that, we had to switch from everyone just stopping in to pick up their trees to a drive-through service, kind of like fast food. That's the only way we could handle 450 to 500 people coming in a day and a half. So it's been quite an event over the years. You'll see our volunteers, a lot of the staff. We have volunteers. We have Josie and Rachel from HR has helped us out. We get students from Big Spring High School that help to bundle the trees, and also to hand out the seedlings the 2 days of our distribution. So it's quite an exciting event, and it's nice to get that many trees out in the environment. Some of the details from the 2023, we had 451 customers, 12,000 seedlings, and a good profit of over $7,000. So what do we use that money for? That money is used for scholarships and high school and college scholarships. Envirothon that we put on each year for the environmental competition for high school students. Expenses and awards come from the tree seedling sale. Promotional items like mugs that we hand out, rain gauges, we hand out things like that. That's what we use some of the money for. And then conservation awards, where we have people that are worthy of winning conservation awards. The plaques and expenses for that picnic come from the tree sale. And this past year was our 45th tree seedling sale, and calculated over the years, we fluctuate maybe from 12,000 trees to some years we had 20,000 seedlings sold. So our estimate is over 500,000 seedlings planted in the environment during all of our sales. So it's a great program. People call us the tree people, so I've been called worse, so I don't mind being called the tree people. The next one, just wanted to highlight, we have a good scholarship program because of the golf tournament and the tree seedling sale. So this past year already, 13 students have been awarded scholarships of over $8,350. This is Emma Stone here. She was our 2022 Wilbur Wolf scholarship winner. So our top recipient gets $1,000, and the other ones get $500. And then we also give out scholarships to Trout Unlimited, fly fishing camp, and different things like that. We also share with Farm Bureau. We give $1,000 towards scholarship, and they also give $1,000 for the one scholarship. So because of the tree sale golf tournament, we're able to provide a lot of scholarships for these students. The next I wanted to highlight was some agriculture programs. The first one is when in the Chesapeake Bay program, EPA is really putting the heat on the state to get a lot of compliance done within the Bay watershed. So 7 years ago, when we took on some of the program funding, they were requiring ag technicians to do 50 inspections per one full-time equivalent person. So We've completed 7 years of inspections, and what the inspections determine if the farmer is in compliance by having a manure management plan or an erosion control plan / conservation plan. So our staff will go out to the farm, we'll send them a letter, and then follow up call, try to not have a cold call, and then we'll go out and determine if they're in compliance with state regulations. Now, we've had a pushback, a little bit. You're going to have that when you're kind of doing compliance checks, but for the most part, we are glad we decided to do this program because we have got to go out there and work with so many farmers that otherwise we wouldn't have met. And then it turns into working with other programs that we do. And Vince hears that at our meetings and everything. Some surrounding conservation districts at that time decided not to participate in the Bay program because they didn't want to wear the black hat and be the compliant. But we kind of do both. We're wearing the black hat, but then also we'll be able to wear the white hat and work with them and working with voluntary programs too. So I commend our board of directors for saying we're going to take it on. We're going to go out there and make sure the farmers are in compliance. I wanted to highlight a couple new programs that the state legislators approved. Conservation Excellence Grant Program, which we've been involved with for a couple of years now, and actually completed 6 projects. And Ag Conservation Assistance Program, which is a new program. We haven't spent any money there, but we do have some applications, and we have design work, and there's going to be a couple projects probably completed by this fall on these programs. Now, they are state programs, but right now, most of the money is federal money coming in for these programs. And there's the first pictures of a first project that we completed on a farm north of Carlisle in 74. The upper pictures, you can see how much sediment and manure runoff was occurring after a storm. And it went down to a drainage ditch along the road. There's a culvert there. And on the other side of that road is a stream. So we put in a roofed heavy use area, stacking pad to keep that manure under roof, and then the farmer will be able to spread it at the optimal time. But that you can see how much of a difference that would make on every storm, less nutrients getting down into the stream. This is an example of another project we completed off Moordale Road. If you're on 81, going south of Carlisle, just a few miles past the Allen Road exit, if you look to the right, this is Don McKeon's project. He had some runoff issues, and it's a limestone area, so sinkhole prone. And so we put this roof up, and it's a beef operation. And then you have a concrete wall stacking of the manure, and half of it's for stacking the manure, half of it's for the cattle area. And then he'll be able to spread the manure at the right time instead of, we always like to say, keep the clean water clean. So that's what we do. And that's roofed heavy use area is probably the most sought after projects that our farmers are looking for these days. Next, I wanted to switch to kind of a water quality type project. This was a Growing Greener project. We got $250,000 that Lori Glace applied for. And this stretches from the Humpback Bridge in Boiling Springs down to the Allenberry Playhouse, about a mile and a half stretch here. And we worked with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Trout Unlimited, Yellow Breeches Anglers, a number of different organizations on putting in practices. This is a mud sill that they're working on. So the key was we had a lot of bank erosion, and the stream was getting wider, so the water would be warmer. So the key was to stabilize the banks and try to get that. This is a cross vein here. Try to get the water towards the middle of the stream and put the energy in the middle of the stream instead of the side of the banks where there'd be more erosion problems. So this was finished last fall. And so Lori gave a presentation to interested people that wanted to see all the work that was done. And we did a walking tour of all the projects. So if you wanted to take a walk yourself, you could go to the Humpback Bridge on the other side of the stream, and there's a trail the whole way down longer to Leidig Road. So you could walk that and see all the practices that were put in. But also the landowner of Lowenberry, Mike Kennedy, put some money towards it too. So, you know, the landowner contributed towards the project also. And there's just another example of Jay where it's pushing that water to the middle of the stream, stabilizing the bank. There's another, that's looking up at the bridge there in Boiling Springs. So Trout Unlimited, Yellow Breeches Anglers, all these guys are pretty happy with getting things stabilized. There was a lot of erosion problems along that stretch. Since this is a finance meeting, I figured I wanted to talk a little bit about finance and money numbers. The first slide shows how our expenses have grown over the years, and mainly because of programs. We've increased the number of programs, number of cost share programs coming from the state. As you see, they've grown here. 2022 was the highest we ever had, and the projected budget for 2024 is even higher because of the ACAP program. At the same time, the expenses are growing. The county subsidy that we get from the county and the commissioners, we get them into two different companies. And as you can see by the bar graph there, that last year we actually asked for less county subsidy than we did 10 years ago because our staff does a good job in seeking grants, trying to get as much grant money from the state and federal government, and ask for less and less county subsidy to, to get the jobs done. So as I was thinking about this, my last slide, I just thought at the last minute, I was like, where all were we getting our funding from? And I hope I didn't miss any, but I think I did a good job of trying to come up with where we got money in 2022, 17 different sources of funding for implementing our programs. Like I said, you talk to finance office, we got all kinds of grant forms and everything we got to fill out every month and everything because of all the different sources of funding. So, and if you look at the bottom line, that represents of our total budget, the county subsidy is only 5.4% of the total conservation district budget. Now, that's skewed a little bit because of all the last 2 years getting a lot of grant money for ag BMPs. But I will say over the years before we got all that money, I would say the county subsidy was 15 to 18% of our total budget at that time on a normal budget without all this money in there. So we try to keep that subsidy down, getting funding elsewhere.
The BMP money comes from where?
What's that?
Is that the money that the farmers are paying for the BMP?
The 5%?
Or no, you're saying about the revenue that was coming in for BMP. And
State money and mostly federal money.
Okay.
Mostly federal. This ACAP is all federal money. The CEG had a little bit of state money, but a lot of federal money.
Okay, so the programs that are being done on private farms, the farms are paying for this.
So the farmer has 10%. We cost share 90% of the BMP. The farmer has a 10% interest in his practice that's put in there. So the programs allow us to have flexibility on what percentage. We used to do 75%, and because of all this money, the board increased it to 90%. There's actually a couple of districts that are going 100%, but our board feels the farmer needs to have a little bit of skin in the game because it's a practice on his farm. So we're not going 100%, but it's mostly state and a lot of federal.
What are most of the conservation districts? Peg that.
I think most of them are at the 90%. They were back at the 75, 80% before these programs, and then everyone kind of adjusted. I think most of them are the 90%.
Okay.
Yeah,
because the revenues were increased by the
state. Correct.
Okay.
And we have a short window to spend it. We have till for the ACAP December 31st of 2026 to spend that 2.8 million for the ACAP program. So it's not like we got 5 years. It's like short window to get that spent.
Okay.
Right. Yep. And that's why we did hire a part-time ag engineer that does some of the work for the inventory and evaluation of the farm, does the design work and construction oversight because of the increased workload that we have because of that. So that's my part, and Vince has slides on the erosion sedimentation program. Now, there were some programs, while she's getting that, I'll mention it. There's some programs that I didn't mention today, like cover crop program, during gravel, that we'll give that highlight the next time we come here, but I didn't want to go over all the programs and then have time to do all that.
So good afternoon. As Carl mentioned, I'm Vince McCollum, the Assistant Manager for the Conservation District, and I'm going to go over the Chapter 102 Erosion Sedimentation National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System program that we administer here in Cumberland County. The goal of the program is to minimize erosion and sedimentation from active earth moving sites. So when we go out in the field, these are the kind of pictures that we don't want to see. Sometimes whether contractors get started and don't implement ENS controls, or they're doing earthwork without having the plans in place and so on. This is just what we don't want to see when we go out in the field, evidence of sediment taking place and getting introduced to the streams. And so what's regulated? It depends on what sector we're talking about. Chapter 102 breaks it down, breaks agriculture out separately from regular construction activity. But the bottom line is any earth disturbance activity is required to implement BMPs to reduce erosion sedimentation. Where it starts getting into paperwork that's required is if you're disturbing 5,000 square feet or more of earth, which is not a big area. Then you have to have a written erosion sediment control plan and then have the practices implemented on site. And if you're disturbing 1 acre or more of earth, then it requires an NPDES permit, which is they would have to apply for through our office to obtain that permit. So something on the left there, just a single house being constructed along a road, they would not necessarily need the NPDES permit, but they would require an erosion sediment control plan. And then the site on the lower right, that's a larger multi-phase residential development. Something like that would require the NPDES permit, which has a bunch of different plans that I'll talk about here in a little bit that would get authorization through our office. So there's different levels of delegated authority that conservation districts can choose through the Department of Environmental Protection. The first one is level 1, where it's just education and outreach to the regulated community. So this would be through newsletters, visits to homeowners that have questions about earthwork that they want to do. And there's only one conservation district in the state that has that level. The next would be level 2, which is all the level 1, plus receiving, processing, and reviewing NPDES permit applications, inspections of the earth moving site, and then complaint investigations. In the Commonwealth, there are 54 districts that have that level 2 delegation. And with that delegation, there's timeframes associated with the reviews, inspections. There's minimum requirements that we are required to do. And here at our district, we tie that into our P4P so that we can track how well we're doing on our delegation agreement requirements. The next then is level 3, which includes the first 2 levels plus program enforcement. So if we go out and do an inspection and find violations, we can actually go to enforcement here locally as a conservation district with those responsible parties, rather than forwarding it to PADEP for them to handle. So the benefits of that is we can get a much quicker result. We can enforce locally. We can do it informally. We can do it over the phone. We can do it through an actual agreement that involves DEP lawyers. But basically, it gives us a little more leverage in the field. You know, when we go out for a pre-construction meeting and the contractors know that if they mess up, we're going to be the ones taking them to enforcement, there's a little bit more credibility there for what they're doing in the field and what we can do as the conservation district. So that is nice, and there's 11 districts in the state that have that level 3. One that came about 12 years ago is PCSM delegation, which is post-construction stormwater management. So that is specifically doing engineering technical reviews of the post-construction stormwater management plans associated with individual NPDES permits. I know that's a mouthful. The individual NPDES permits are where sites are located in high quality or exceptional value streams. So those are ones that you want to make sure are being reviewed to a higher level to ensure that all of the state regulatory requirements are met. In order to have that delegation, you need to have a professional engineer on staff, which we do, and there's 8 districts in the state that have that PCSM delegation. And that sort of came about almost 10 years ago, I guess, or 11 years ago. There was a backlog of permits being authorized at DEP, and we have a committee that of the regulated community. It has some consultants, some developers, and earth moving contractors, and they were the ones that were sort of pushing for us to take on this delegation, knowing that they would get their permits quicker if it went through our office and not just to the state. So it's actually been good. We are definitely getting permits out quicker, but unfortunately over the last 10 years, the workload of that has dramatically increased, which we'll touch on in a little bit. And just one thing I did want to mention, there's only 4 districts in the state that have both level 3 delegation, the enforcement, and the PCSM delegation, and Cumberland is one of them. So as far as educating the regulated community, we can do that through various methods, but one thing that we do every year is have an annual workshop for either engineers, the community that is designing all of these applications that we review, and alternate years we do it for earth moving contractors, so we can highlight maybe some new technology on BMPs or installation of those BMPs, and then as well as doing articles for our conservation district annual report, newsletters, that kind of thing. So getting into the reviews that we're responsible to do, it's sometimes just simple E&S plans for a single family home, but it might be something that requires the NPDS permit, which a site like this that you can see there, that's just an example of a drawing for a development in Upper Allen Township. So when we get into reviewing these, we're looking at all of the practices that the consultants are designing to manage the erosion and sedimentation during construction. So they may have facilities that capture all the sediment-laden water, and then it is detained there and settles out. And then once the development is finished, then a lot of those practices get converted to the permanent facility, which is the post-construction. So they're both looked at differently and managed differently, and then that's the part that we have to review to make sure it meets the regulatory requirements. And along that, there's all sorts of calculations and infiltration testing that's done. And this is just an example of some of the details of the structures that are constructed that we have to look at and verify that they've been designed accordingly. Getting into the inspections, this is part of the job that's more fun, getting out in the field, walking across construction sites and seeing what's going on. This is just a couple examples of some of what we might see in the field. There in the upper left, that's most likely a sediment basin. And as you can see, that has a lot of sediment in it. And that's what it's designed to do. It's designed for all the sediment-laden water running off from the disturbed areas to be collected there, stay in that facility for 2 to 7 days, and then allow that sediment to drain or drop out prior to the water leaving the facility and discharging off-site or to a stream. On the lower right there, that's just, sort of finishing a development. Most of the homes are built. They're still trying to get some stabilization in some of the yards. And then on the lower left there, sort of similarly, you can see there's some disturbed areas, more internal, but around the perimeter, they have a stone swaled area, and then some vegetated areas as they're still working within the site. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the level 3 enforcement and also the complaint investigation, and we do have the level 3 delegation. So this is the part of the job that's not quite as fun most of the time for the district, but you do have either rain events that are just beyond, what the facilities are designed for, or the contractors could be in an interim of installing a practice, and you have uncontrolled runoff. And then these are some of the things we may see out in the field where you just have all that sediment water leaving a site, either going out into a road, a ditch, a stream, what have you. And then we either have to go to enforcement, we document it through the inspections, and then we have a compliance strategy that's approved by our board of directors that we use as guidance for doing follow-up inspections, gaining that typically voluntary compliance, but because there's some other violations or pollution events, we do often go after them with a penalty. This is just an example of the report that we send to the commissioners each month for the NPDS program, just a couple of highlights of the information that we provide to you all. And then just touching on financials here at the end. So coming into 23, when we were budgeting, we thought that it would be about the same as 22 or maybe even slow down a little bit, but we were wrong. So as you can see, this is for the same year-to-date time for calendar year 22 and 23. So the left there on 23, we received 88 plans year-to-date. 22 is 54. For the ENS project fees, we're up about 15,000 over the same time frame last year. Our NPDS permit fees is up about 10,000. And then the PCSM project fee is just up a little bit the same time frame year-to-date. All that to say that we're busier than we thought we would be, and workloads are difficult being managed. Carl was saying about the increase in all the ag BMP funding. The engineer in our office does both the ag design work for project as well as the PCSM engineering reviews. And moving into 24, we're looking to get approval for a part-time position to supplement that, just because it's harder and harder, if not impossible, to meet the required timeframes in our delegation agreement for those engineering reviews. But so we're about as busy as we can be, and not exactly where we thought we'd be at this time, but that's all I have. If there's any questions.
And speaking of that position that we put in the budget, it'd be 100% funded by our fee schedule, permit fees and ENS fees, because the workload is there. And we're hoping that Mike could turn back and do some more ag work, because EPA, they look at our reports and Mike's doing a lot of post-construction stormwater. They want to see more ag in his design work and everything. So this would help him free up his time a little to do a little more ag work.
Guys are pretty self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Carl or Vince, where are we now with the Chesapeake Bay work?
We've seen reports where everything has slightly, showing improvement. With, I think, a U.S. Geological Survey, their numbers are saying things are getting a little bit better as far as nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment is the main three things that they look at. So you hear mixed reports at times, but I think it is getting better. I would think it has to be. I mean, we're doing a lot of good ag work, but now when it comes to like lawn service, stuff like that, we don't have control over. That's the kind of stuff where nutrients are put on and maybe soil tests aren't done to see what it really needs. But I think things are improving.
My sense is, correct me if I'm wrong, the ag community seems to be getting into they see the need for the BMP.
Yes.
The funding that's out there.
Yes, we are working more now with the plain sec than we ever have. And now, we put out some promotional items in the Farm Bureau newsletter and different releases, and we actually have farmers calling us wanting to get on the list because they need some work done. And we actually have to create a list now, because we might not be able to get to you for 6 months because we have a list of farmers that are interested in doing work. So yes, they are more acceptable to things now. And I think us going out and doing inspections and getting to know the farmers, getting a little bit of trust, I think helps out too.
It looks like things could ramp up, and the EPA settled its lawsuit with the states.
Right.
And Cumberland County is one of the counties that the EPA has promised it's going to take a harder look at. So it looks like things are going to get even busier.
Yes, Lancaster and York are first what they're looking at, but we're a tier 2 county in the Chesapeake Bay program. So we could be one that they look at in the next year or two.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
It's good all this work has been done, right?
Yes.
It's excellent.
Oh, yeah.
This has been done.
Yeah, some of those projects, especially I highlighted on 74, where the runoff was coming down and now no runoff at all. That's huge, huge difference.
So you say you imply at least that you still have some pushback from some in regards to BMP.
Right.
What's the enforcement power?
Well, if there's a water quality type issue, that's seen, then, DEP and Fish Commission and different enforcement agencies can do enforcement if there's water quality issues and they don't want to fix it. But, you know, we rely a lot on complaint calling because we can't be out there everywhere. And so there's runoffs from farms. I know our nutrient management technician just today got a couple calls. And so he has to go out to the farm to see if there, you know, it's a legitimate call and if there's a pollution and everything. So if it, you know, if they don't have an erosion control plan or not following, there's issues. I mean, we can actually have the enforcement on the farm itself, but if it's actually, you know, maybe a water quality type issue, manure in the stream, then it's DEP or Fish Commission, things like that. Yes.
Thank you. So they have to be in compliance in order to qualify for other county.
Correct. Yeah, that's the one thing when they sign up for a program, they have to, you know, want to get an inspection done. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get them, make sure they have a plan. Their plans to be meeting state regulations. They have to agree to an inspection. Yep. And like I said, not all the farms that we go to have the plans. And so the standard operating procedure gives them 9 months to get their plans in order. So if we do an inspection of a farmer, and we've had a number of them that don't have the plans, so we write the inspection report and they get up to 270 days to get in compliance. So we've had almost all of them get in compliance, but we have one that was sent to DEP because they are not coming into compliance. So that remains to be seen what's going to happen there. Yeah. We refer them to DEP. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks for calling.
Yeah,
Yep.
thanks.
So-
That's great.
So apparently this is not only pre-work process or pre-whiteout too.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
That's very interesting. Thanks.
Yeah, it is, yeah. I laughed at that too, seeing all the changes.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you
All
very
right, thank you.
much.
You want
Anything else? You have something?
After, not right now.
Okay, all right. All right. Okay, that concludes the topics for discussion for today. It brings us to item 5, which is other business and additional finance. All right, so I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. Adjournment, thank you.